How many four-letter words can I use on that?
Don't get taken down. Figure it out. Like, find a way to not get taken down, even if there's a minute left.
Oh, Nick, I'm a top guy, so I love top wrestling.
We have an amazing culture within our program, and you know, we build it. We don't buy it. We build it.
So I think that wrestling is the greatest sport on earth.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into On3 Wrestling. I'm your host, Nick Costco, and with me today is my guy, CJ LaFragola. If you don't know him, you should know him pretty soon because he's got a fight coming up on August 30th in Atlantic City on CFFC. He's going to be taking on Jacob Guerrero. And CJ, good to talk to you, my man. I'll just start right there before we dive into the full-fledged conversation. How's fight camp coming up, or how's fight camp going, I should say, now that you are less than 2 weeks out?
Real good. First, appreciate you having me on. Always, pleasure catching up. It's going good. I mean, like you said, kind of winding down now. A little more focused on just tightening up some little things. Nothing too much crazy. I've only a couple more real hard sessions really left. And then pretty much at that point, it's just focus on game plan stuff and just the fun part, the weight cut. MMA is a little different than the good old wrestling, so the weight cut's a little more, I wouldn't say extreme, but a little more difficult than back in the wrestling days. But we always find a way to make it happen.
Yeah, wrestling, you're making weight 1 or 2 times a week in college. Of course, your college days, 3-time NCAA qualifier for Brown University. Of course, you finished your collegiate athletics career over at Sacred Heart. So we'll dive into that in a little bit. Just, I'm curious about, your budding MMA career right now. You've had 5 professional fights, and you've also competed for CFFC's grappling cards as well. You last fought back in March, unfortunately a loss, but since that time, and did you take any time off from that last fight to get ready for this one? What was basically your training regimen after that last fight, and then now obviously you're gearing up for this one?
Yeah, it's always hard. The early MMA career, we're working full-time jobs and fighting professionally, so it's a grind. After that fight, I definitely had to do some work stuff, but I pretty much jumped back into camp. Or I wouldn't even call it camp because you have a fight book, but right back into training. It's starting to just changing things up. I've been working more predominantly over at Marquez here in Philly. That's like the home base now. So I've really fully committed to that gym there in Philly with, there's so many top dogs there. We got Sean Brady trains out of there, Joe Pfeiffer, Jeremiah Wells, so some of the UFC names, but there's other names that are like literally knocking on the door at UFC. So it's a great place to be. They really have a good system there. So really diving fully into that gym, I feel a difference already just in my training. Nothing against, former gyms I've been at, but I think it's just a good spot for me. And really just Coach John as a system. Like I said, I think that's the biggest thing. I think sometimes I was kind of going, we're like, hey, I'll train here one day, train there, kind of little sporadic, but now it's a little more systematic. And like anything, reps and building that, system is kind of the best thing, even in every sport, MMA, wrestling, football, whatever it is, you need a good system. So kind of jump back right into it. The hard thing with MMA, I was actually trying to get a fight even earlier than where I'm at now. I think I forget what, when we were looking at it, but, sometimes matchups or even, coming off a loss sometimes is hard. It's crazy to think there's so many fighters out there, but there's matchups are hard to do. And I give the credit to all them, the promoters, because it's not easy. And when they give you a name, you say yes, the other guy says no, or vice versa. It's like, it's definitely a chess match with that. At this level, I'm just trying to all make our path. So it's definitely, was looking for a fight earlier, but, like I said, jumped right back into training pretty much. Still a little sour always with a loss, but definitely was a learning experience more than anything. I was confident in the fight, did well in a lot of areas. Always have to fix certain things. So, that's what's crazy about these fights too. Anything can happen. You can be up, down, whatever it is. You get caught with something, it happens. So, big learning experience as well.
Yeah, you started fighting back in 2021, for those who don't know, in your amateur career, and you turned pro just a couple of years ago. So still very young in your pro MMA career. You mentioned making some adjustments from that last fight. When you have won your fights, you've won by decision, you've won by finish. Obviously, you have a tremendous wrestling background. You train jiu-jitsu. You do pretty much everything under the sun like you're supposed to. Was there one area of your game where you're like, you know what, I do kind of have to fix this or maybe make some tweaks ahead of my next fight?
For sure, like anything, everything needs work at times. You can't forget about the wrestling training either, right? Even though that's home base, you still got to keep repping it out, and just like I said, tightening up on some stuff. really developing, again, going back to what I said, like a system. And when it comes to striking is such a systematic approach in terms of the patterns in striking, and like even like I'm more boxing based, I would say. I'm not going to say I don't throw kicks, but I feel like I'm more with strikes and takedowns. And like you said, it's a kind of a systematic approach to it, where it's now it's like, okay, there's certain patterns and certain movements, like in terms of head movement and footwork, that I needed to develop a little more. And I feel like I'm starting to really, catch on in those areas. And a way to just blend it all into like the takedowns, and just a couple areas like there where you just tighten up. Takedowns are one thing. I always get the takedowns, tighten up on maybe keeping down, that kind of stuff. And like I said, nothing crazy that we had to adjust, just clean up some areas. And I think like I said, being at the new location here, I think we're kind of touching those really well.
Yeah, and speaking of that, you go from your wrestling career, you ended up coaching at Drexel for a couple of years as well. So NCAA wrestling was kind of always around in your blood. And then, of course, you finished out with going back to football and baseball at Sacred Heart, which I do want to ask you about in a second. But now that you've, I guess, been able to basically just work and train at this point, where you're not worried about either competing at the collegiate level or coaching or doing any of those other things, when you are able to focus solely on just MMA and your day-to-day operations of whatever you're doing for work and whatnot, and the fact that you mentioned that you found this is like your new home base in terms of your gym, you're not jumping from gym to gym. Do you find that this is the path that you wanted to go on for MMA, and the fact that maybe there's it I don't want to say your training camps are easier, but it seems like they're more consistent at this point?
Absolutely. I think that's the best word, is, the consistency is definitely better. Like I said, I was driving pretty far, even training back when I was doing the back and forth to Jersey, which I still go to, some of the gyms. I go to Dante Rivera's, a lot of those guys, they've been coming to Philly now too. Eric Nolan actually just fought on the UFC. He's one of my main training partners. So he got a short notice call, showed up, showed out, really took it to the guy, tough fight, bumped up weight class, ended up, having the loss, but he really showed up, represented for Jersey and our team. So like I still train with a lot of those guys. So I do make the trip here and there, but like you said, the consistency with practice, and just having a multitude of partners to work with over at this gym here, Marquez, has been it's been undeniably better for me. Just having that arsenal around of different animals just to train with. Like anything in this combat sport world, you got to get beat up to get better, to an extent. Obviously you don't want to get your face punched in every day, but it's definitely one of those sports where if you're the top dog, it's hard to grow. And I think this has forced me to, it's either grow or you don't shoot, either you get better or you're going to get pummeled. So you have to figure it out, or, learn, win or learn kind of thing. But definitely going really well. I will say, it's still hard, work-life balance and training balance, is really hard even now, like even with not coaching wrestling, which that took up a lot of time. But like anything, you're still trying to figure out how to make everything fit into 24 hours, and sleep. So it's definitely still a grind. A lot of the training still goes on late nights, early morning stuff. But you just kind of find a way to work around it the best you can, and then the ultimate goal is where you can just focus on training one day. That's the dream, focus on just training and fighting and just competing, and not have to worry about the the sales stuff. But hey, for now it pays the bills, and it's a good product and a fun company. So I'm not mad at it. So everybody likes the fighting too. That always goes a long way. You don't want to be working and kind of hiding it. So that's what's good. My whole team supports it over there. So it's a good relationship with all of it. And like you said, I'm in definitely a good place with the timing and the consistency of the training, as well as with work and everything.
Without a doubt, as we mentioned before, Jacob Guerrero is your opponent on August 30th at the Hard Rock in Atlantic City. So, you're back home in Jersey, going to show up for Jersey. So that's where that fight takes place for CFFC in just 12 short days from the time we are taping this. Want to look back on your college wrestling career a little bit, because, for those who, don't know, to our national audience, you're from South Jersey, graduated from St. Joe's Hamilton, went on to wrestle over at Brown University, and then you turned it into a pretty darn good career, finished in the round 16 back in 2018. So a lot of, accolades to your name as far as your wrestling career is concerned. So just looking back at that, how do you look back at your wrestling career since, at this point, it's about, 5-6 years removed from that time, and you've done a lot since then in terms of, coaching, getting your MMA career started, doing pretty much everything under the sun since then, when it was just all about wrestling. But how do you look back at your time at Brown just 5-6 years ago?
Sure, I know. Like you said, it is crazy to think we've passed the 5 year mark pretty much now. It's wild looking back that way. But no, it was good. I mean, I enjoyed that career. It was growing up in high school and stuff. I always thought football was gonna be like the first route. I'd always been a football guy. St. Joe was a football guy, and then Brown opened the doors to me with the Ivy League opportunity. And originally the goal was to do both at Brown, and then I ended up just wrestling offered me the spot. I'm like, I gotta give them the full focus, and then like you said, just being in the room and stuff, being around the guys, being around Coach Beckerman, kind of transformed the way I looked at wrestling. I think I looked at it more in high school. Not that I didn't, train full time or anything. Like, I definitely looked at it more as like a secondary sport, and I think it turned into a primary sport big time, obviously in college. And I really learned a lot. Like I said, like anything, you took some lumps initially. The first year is always tough. Ivy League's tough. You come right in. Unless you do like a gap year, like some schools kind of opt to, you pretty much come right in and thrown into the fire. You're a true freshman. No red shirt in there. So that's definitely a learning curve out the gate. So that first year was tough, and then second year I kind of got a rhythm, figured some things out, figured out the college wrestling mentality. It has more hand fight driven and physical as opposed to in high school you can kind of get away with some sloppy stuff. And not saying that kids aren't tough, but you can get away with some stuff.
Yeah.
But everybody tightens it up at the D1 college level, and took me a while to navigate that. But then sophomore year, I even though I didn't show out at the conference, I was able to qualify a bid, which was cool. So that was the first taste of nationals, and I really hit a groove. Second, my junior year, really second full year of being in the starting lineup, and that was the year I went to the round of 16, which is always an adventure. That was the year in nationals and warm ups. Me and my coach were warming up, and I actually broke my wrist in warm ups. So I'm like starting the tournament, kind of like behind the eight ball there. So I was like, oh man. But it's one of those things. It's almost like it took the nerves off. Hey, I'm already messed up. So going into it hurt, and it's like, a good time. I wrestled. We had a tough match. The first match I ended up losing to one of our Rutgers guys, Gravina. Always a good competitor. We had a couple of matches back in college. I think we did a freestyle one and then nationals, and then I ran off a few in the wrestlebacks there, which is that's the grittiest tournament no matter what. Though I mean, at the end of the day, NCAA nationals. I mean, anything can happen, and it's just about being as tough as you can throughout that process. So senior year I didn't maybe perform as much as well I wanted to in nationals, but I definitely not ashamed of it, and it's always an adventure, like you said, when you go to NCAA's, and definitely enjoyed my time at Brown though. Really good camaraderie. I still talk to a lot of the guys, and I love what they're doing right now. I feel like they're really revamping the program over there. Jordan's doing a great job. They brought Coach Grayson back, who was one of my coaches. He was an assistant when I was there early. He ended up not being there my last year. But he was like a staple for the program. He actually helped recruit me as well. So I love seeing that Tyler's back. And like they just did a big donation because they're building a women's program as well over at Brown. Another, they got the endowment going for the women's program as well as the men's has been endowed now for a few years. We had some really good donors right before I started at Brown. So I love seeing that. The program's going in the right direction, and I'm excited to see where Jordan and the team takes it.
Yeah, for sure. Considering the lack of Division I programs for the women's side, the fact that Brown's now in there. I know there's other big name schools that have women's clubs, and I think Brown's is just going to be the latest where the Division I is actually a possibility and now maybe a reality to have both men and women wrestle, especially at the Ivy League level. It's that's top notch stuff. So it's funny because you mentioned that you broke your hand during warm-ups at NCAAs, and you're like, all right, I guess I'm just going to wrestle like this. So along those same lines, I mean, that's obviously a standout moment, and you kind of wrestle, as you alluded to, a little bit freer, and you're like, all right, pressure's kind of off a little bit. My hand's messed up. Was there a win or a certain match or maybe a dual meet for you guys, or any moment during your college career where you're like, all right, I'm going to remember this, this individual win forever, or this moment forever? Is there anything that really stands out to you even to this day?
Yeah, I probably got like a couple. I mean, one would be in that nationals. I beat a kid who had actually just been a thorn in my side, my whole career. Like I lost to him, I think 4 times prior, and he was a Binghamton kid. That was the round of. That was one before the round of 16. And, we just went back and forth, kind of butted heads, matches. They were always like, a little physical and to the point where it's like a little bit after the whistle action kind of thing. And just being able to knock off, a top, not just a top wrestler, but somebody that was very specific to like my career that's been, a tough match. That was a big moment for me, knocking him off, in nationals too, just to add to it. So that was big. I will always remember, big match. When we technically took officially. Well, we technically tied because we lost to Harvard that year, but we tied for second in the Ivy, which was a big step for us. So we kind of upset Princeton at the Beauty and the Beast match. We did that event with the gymnastics, so that was a big upset. And then we also beat Columbia that same season, which they were all kind of in the running for that second spot. We're always chasing Cornell. Everybody's chasing Cornell in the Ivies, but that was a big moment for us at Brown. My junior season, we took second, truthfully, as a team, which was awesome in the Ivy. So like those ones really stick out. I think Midlands was always an experience that was fun to learn from, and it was like almost like a mini national. So placing there was big, and then definitely winning the Navy Classic was like a big goal for me. That was like my junior year. I won that, and I ended up I avenged a loss from the previous nationals. And just that was my first big like D1 tournament that I was able to like finish on top, and that was like a big turning point, kind of just like getting into my groove and kind of learning, the way of D1 wrestling and figuring everything out.
So you spent your graduate year at Sacred Heart. That's where you finished up. You got back into football that fall. Then you actually ended up playing baseball as well that spring. Again, being a 3-sport athlete, you were a star at St. Joe's in all 3 of those sports. When you were looking for your graduate year, I know you already said that you wanted to go to Brown and you tried to play football and wrestle at the same time. When you had that extra year, one, did you expect to have, I'm going to go take a graduate year and maintain collegiate eligibility? Were you looking for schools where like you could do both football and baseball, or did it just happen that way? And you're like, all right, I want to go back to football and see where I could play at the Division I level.
Yeah, so I had a couple crazy ideas as school was winding down. So the Sacred Heart thing was planted. I mean, I knew the coaches. I got recruited by them out the gate. Same staff pretty much, except maybe like 1 or 2 assistants might have been different. But Coach Nofri was still the head coach like at the time, and my coach at the time was Coach Cook, was the linebackers coach. But Gordon Hill, another St. Joe grad, was coaching at the time as well. So around my junior year, he had mentioned the idea. Pretty much, we kind of planted the seed a little bit. So he had mentioned, hey, you obviously can't wrestle another year unless we get some sort of medical red shirt. But you can do another sport because that's like an NCAA rule there. You can get an exception to do a different sport, not wrestling, as long as you didn't expire your time. So that was kind of the idea was planted there. I did try to like look into ways of getting. I still wanted I had the itch to wrestle, which in hindsight, we always say hindsight's 20/20. If I made it to nationals that extra year, actually COVID would have happened, so it would have been unfortunate. So it kind of worked out for the better. Because that would have really stunk if you made it to NCAAs and then like it didn't even matter, like if you were ranked or something. So the Sacred Heart thing was kind of planted. Actually, I was talking with Rutgers when I was trying to do the wrestling side. We couldn't get the medical thing figured out. My freshman year, I had some surgeries, so like I tried to like look into that, but again, you can't wiggle the system too much. I had medical paperwork, but not the right stuff. But yeah, so I ended up doing the football route, which was really what I ultimately wanted to do. The baseball kind of came out like I thought about it. I initially introduced myself to some of the coaches kind of through mutual, guys back home. Even I still played in the ACBL sometimes even. So like I had some connections with like some of the teams that like knew some of the baseball coaches, but the football thing was the main plan. And really Gordon put that in motion. And basically, they were open doors, accepted it. They're like, this is cool, like go for it. Like the coaches there all accepted me. And also a cool twist was, besides Gordon being the St. Joe guy, we had the twins who played with us, Salam and Alam. I was one of our quarterback and our other running back, as well as JD Dorenzo, another St. Joe grad. So it was like a mini St. Joe. So we had like the team kind of built there already. So it was kind of cool coming in. I already knew, not half the team, but I knew a few amount of players already that were starting at the time. So it's like, that's always good, having some comfort. And I remember the first day of when I finally got into camp, because really I came in, I didn't do spring ball or anything. I just came in the summer camp, and they do their conditioning tests and everything. And I was technically position wise, they had me down as a linebacker. I pretty much ended up starting on special teams across the board. And basically they rotated me in on some packages. I was like some specialty positions, essentially, like almost like made up positions, role playing stuff. But it was fun. It was awesome. I mean, I wish I had more time to learn the system because that was the hardest thing, just coming from, not like necessarily the physical side was fine. Just coming from not doing football for 4 years to jumping into that level, the amount of behind the scenes stuff you don't think about, like defensive playbook alone was just like 50 plus different
Right.
responsibilities, and I started to catch on maybe like a little bit into the preseason stuff, but again I'm behind the eight ball there without the spring ball and everything, but it was a great experience. And with that conditioning test, it was funny with the linebackers group. I forget what the times were. I think it might have been like 12. They were 110-yard like sprints, but like stride, it's full sprint, but pretty
Right.
pretty good pace. And I think it was 15 of them. And then you had like 12 seconds for your running backs or like skill, like linebackers, kind of like the middle sized people was like 15. I think linemen were like 20 seconds. And
Yeah.
like there's people like barely getting across the line. The line, poor linemen, I felt bad for. They're big dudes. It's rough, but I think you had like 45 seconds in between each rep, and like I was going, I'm like, yeah, this ain't too bad. Like having that wrestling base.
Right.
A
Right.
couple of
Right.
kids were like, yo, you should slow down. Like you're gonna run out of gas. Like, nah, I'm good. So that was important to me, though. I wanted to come in. That's like the first event we did, and I had to come out and kind of like I don't even know how I'm gonna like establish myself here and like kind of show that hey, I'm here to work hard at least. Like I can guarantee that. Like I don't know,
Hmm.
the system's new. I got to learn this, and first time I put on pads in 4 years, but hey, you're not gonna outwork me, kind of thing. And I think that really what was cool is like the defense. I've part of the defensive core there. We always did, believe it or not, the offense didn't do the gassers at the end. We had extra gassers that we would do after the sprints. So like I always made a point to be like first in that stuff. And I feel like, yeah, even though I wasn't like a starter or something like on the main defense, like I think I elevated everybody a little bit by just like pushing the pace, and just like a wrestler, you push the pace and anything. And I think instead of the kids being like, hey man, slow down, they made it
Right.
more like, hey, let's all step up. So I think it was cool that I was able to play some sort of role, within the team, just being a new face in the program and stuff.
Yeah, made an instant impact. I'm curious about your thoughts on collegiate athletics right now, considering you are about 5 years removed now. So it's funny you mentioned how the COVID season happened right after, right as you went to Sacred
Yeah,
Heart.
so
Where
technically throw that in there. Baseball got cut off from
yeah,
COVID. So I kind of made the team. I officially made the team. We went on our spring trip, which was
mhm.
awesome. We went down to we played at we went down to North Carolina. We did a tournament there. What's it called? Not Vanderbilt. What's the other school down there? Well, Wake Forest.
Yeah,
Down. We played at Wake. It was like a weekend tournament there, and then the next weekend, so like the whole week we were on the road. Took a bus. It was fun trip, but the baseball is such a different vibe. Like you learn, it's cool being a part of all the sports. I've been through like every experience you can think of in
right.
terms of like the athletic journey, and just like seeing the different personalities of like wrestlers versus the football guys and the baseball guys. It's kind of cool to be able to experience all the different levels. Um, but the baseball trip, and then we finished in South Carolina. And then on the way back, we had like one more game after that trip. And then people were like, hey, teams are canceling their season. It was like, that was COVID, like right there. So I was joking. Like, I got a COVID year, baseball. So,
Absolutely. Yeah, you
yeah.
hop right back in there. That's pretty funny.
But like you said, yeah, it's definitely been different, with the COVID years and everything. I think, are we officially done with the COVID kids? Like,
I
think
believe we are now, but which is funny because we go from the COVID years where these guys have 6-7 years of eligibility. But I mean, you see it a lot in wrestling now, especially. But with the transfer portal, with the way it is, and obviously, I believe NIL didn't really come into effect until maybe a year or two fully after your collegiate athletics career. I'm not sure if it was really around, or at least in an official capacity when it came to what you were doing in terms of wrestling, football, and baseball. But when you look at it now, it's like, what I don't know how often you really talk. I mean, you had to navigate a little bit, obviously, with
I was
when you were
definitely
coaching
a
with
little
Drexler.
bit in
So
it. Yeah, for sure.
when you see it, I mean, what were your initial thoughts on it, especially, I guess, a couple of years ago when it was in its infancy? Now it's like, all right, people know about it and they know how to handle it for the most part, but it's still, there's no regulation or rules on it, so to speak, right now. The house settlement's coming down, so that'll be big for the Power Four schools or whoever obviously enrolls into it. But what was your experience with NIL and the transfer portal, at least from a coaching perspective, and how these athletes are supposed to navigate this nowadays?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, the original premise, I always agree with the original
Mhm.
idea. I think it kind of went into a Pandora's box now and kind of like blew up
Yeah.
into what it is now. But the original idea, like we used to go to those NCAA meetings, like when I was at Brown or Sacred Heart still, when we didn't have it cleared yet. I mean, they were like literally like, you can't put your name on a T-shirt, on your own
Mhm.
T-shirt. I'm not even saying like the jersey that the Johnny Manziel jerseys or whatever. Like literally, I couldn't put like CJ LaFragola Brown Wrestling and sell a T-shirt. Like, and that'd be like a shirt I'd be making myself. Or like, for example, if I was running camps, I had to be careful sometimes. I'd like be like, hey, don't put my name on the flyer. Like, I'll just help out, let people know I'm helping.
Yeah.
Like, I would always have to like kind of hide the fact that I'm helping out at a camp. So it's like
Wow.
you weren't allowed to use like, hey, Brown wrestler running summer camp. So it's like in that respect, like it was really unfair. Like, I mean,
Right.
you're running a camp, you earn the right to be a D1 wrestler or whatever sport you're doing. Like, you should be able to run camps or stuff like that. And promote that. Like now, especially in the social media age, you put a flyer out. It's going to catch traction, especially if you're like a local guy and now you're wrestling like just say you're a Rutgers guy from Jersey, then you're running a camp. Like before the NIL stuff changed, like you want to promote that. Hey, so and so is running camp. Like we know him, he's a Rutgers wrestler or something.
Right.
So that was a little frustrating. Like when I was in it, 'cause, like I would have to be like kind of safe by not posting certain things. Like I still did camps, but
Right.
everybody does under the table or whatnot. But now it doesn't have to be. So
Right.
I agree with it in that aspect. I think it's kind of opened up a channel for I don't even know what. Like I just my biggest thing is like the sustainability of it
Mhm.
over these years. I mean, they're starting to like straight up, pay people just to be a part of a team and all that, and it's just like. Well, at what point is this going to be too much where it's just not going to be able to be sustained? I mean, I just read something weird, like a team, like instead of like adding more uniforms, I think it was like a FBS team. They were like I forget what school it was. I just read some article. Like they literally like went to like one helmet and one jersey because they're saving like 500 grand by just having like one instead of having two helmets and one helmet. Like so they're saving that money and they're going to put it towards the kids to like basically pay them to play to get them to come. And it's
Right.
like people are eliminating like these small schools have to eliminate certain things and
Mhm.
whatnot. So it's creating an interesting dynamic for sure. And it's the hardest part is when you see like obviously football and basketball, drive so much revenue, which it's
Mhm.
like it has to somehow go back to the kids too. I think that's fair, but it's like it's hard for like the other athletes, like I don't know. I mean, softball's pretty big, but like some of like the other sports, like a field hockey. Do you think they're getting
Right.
NIL? I mean, the girls do a good job promoting themselves, which like the original purpose of NIL was like promote yourself through your like social media channels and all that, and like you can get sponsors. Like I like that aspect.
Mhm.
Whereas like I think the whole paying to play kind of thing is a little where it's like kind of crossing a
Right.
wishy-washy line. Again, isn't I always say the whole purpose was to go to college. I mean, I wish I got my Brown Ivy League doesn't give that they don't give athletic scholarship. So
Right.
like that's another thing. So it's like I think the Ivy should capitalize on this. Like, hey, like you don't give athletic scholarship technically. I mean, you get the financial aid, which I had a great package. Don't get me wrong. Like we did the numbers really good. But hey, I wish I could have got that totally paid for. Maybe that could have been a thing. So I think the Ivy should capitalize on it. But it's like, the ultimate goal of college is, again, at the end of the day, it should be for the academic side. I don't think there's anything wrong with promoting yourself and, making the financial you can out of, the sports. But it's definitely it's a hard thing to talk. It's it's a hard area. Like you don't know, like who's getting what. And it's definitely tricky to navigate. But I think they should have came out with a lot more tighter regulations when they just started it. And
Mhm.
now they've created this, like I said, Pandora's box. They opened up Pandora's box, and now it's like, well, how far can we go? Like I think
Yeah.
that's kind of where it's at. Where it's hard to go back now. I think that's the hardest thing.
Yeah, I think it's almost like they're trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube right now. The House settlement probably could change things, ultimately for the better, where it kind of just trickles down now. But still, there's still no regular blanket regulation on it. So it'll be interesting to see what it's like 5 years from now. We're about 5-6 years into it, so who knows what it's going to be like 5 or 6 years from now. I am curious when you were done, and again, COVID, I guess, put everything on hold for pretty much everybody, especially in the athletic sense. Sports were canceled. You're done in 2020, and when you're looking at what's to come, your athletic career is all of a sudden it's over. Baseball's canceled. You're like, well, I have no more eligibility now. So
Yeah.
did you always have MMA in your mind at a certain point? Did that come, I guess, maybe after you were done college, or was it like, all right, you know what, MMA is something that I would like to try at a certain point, or did it just come out of nowhere? Obviously during COVID.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually always funny. So I'll go back to like like honestly, my goal with doing the other sports in college was to like, hey, maybe if I do good in baseball, I can get an opportunity to try out somewhere or something. Which I
Right.
was not gonna lie, that was kind of like sort of the side quest goal, always. But I did always have interest in MMA. in my college time at Brown, Steve Mako, who wrestled for Iowa, he coaches at Oklahoma State too. He wrestled for, we know Steve. His brother Joe is one of the biggest alumni at Brown for the wrestling program. He's still, big involved with everything. And he used to bring Steve up, and Steve coaches at ATT now. So he used to bring us down to ATT in the summer. So it was like a good little introductory where we would more grapple with the guys, just like working on wrestling stuff. Like, especially when you're first starting, like we're like, they speak different languages or whatever. Steve, like, hey, don't, no chokes. Like, you have to like let them know, like, hey, this is just wrestling practice. So like that was a fun first time, to kind of get immersed in the sport a little bit and kind of see, what that next level of MMA kind of looks like, and to be like around those guys, wrestle with them. And then, just in terms of grappling, like, when you start doing well against them, like, hey, like I'm kind of competing here. I know it's just takedowns and not like anything, not striking or anything, but it's like, hey, I feel like I can compete with the takedowns. I'm doing well here. And then you kind of look into it like, hey, maybe I can transition eventually into the striking side of things and everything. Actually, back when Steve used to bring up, Colby Covington was still at ATT at the time, so I got to know him really well. And he came up to Brown, I think 2 or 3 times to like train with us, like specifically like our weight class, like me, Vera Wet, a couple of the guys kind of in that, like, John was 65, I was 84, so kind of in that range. So it's cool having him around too, just, picking his brain on wrestling side as well as the fighting stuff. And that was when he was just kind of getting that interim belt. He won against the RDA, so kind of in that time period. But so that was cool. That kind of introduced me a little bit, kind of foot in the door a little bit, to learn about the sport. And then kind of, I would say before that baseball season started, so COVID didn't happen yet. We had no thoughts of COVID. I did introduce myself to like Nick and over at Catones and everything. And I kind of planted a seed that, hey, I'm doing this now in my grad school, but when I come back, officially at home, I definitely am interested. Actually, during my time at Sacred Heart, I dabbled a little bit in some MMA stuff with Fighting Arts Academy as well. Nick Newell up there is a great school. Up there, I think it's considered Stratford up there. It's just above where Sacred Heart is. Like they're awesome. Nick's the man. And I learned a lot from him. Like I used to do a lot of their grappling stuff there, and kind of dabbled with the striking. Kind of started to learn a little bit more of like the one class is more like a striking to take down, kind of like a on your feet MMA class, like with takedowns. So I started dabbling there a little bit as well. And then after, like you said, once COVID allowed us into gyms is when I probably formally really started training, I would say. Like not just wrestling or kind of playing around with it. So I'd say probably around, I think it was like October or November of 2020 when like they really opened up everything. And then by the next year in May is when I had the first official like amateur fight.
So along the same lines, and again, I appreciate your time today. So I only have a couple more for you, but when it comes to, I guess, your long-term vision for MMA, of course, I guess every up-and-coming fighter or aspiring fighter says, UFC gold, like that's everyone's goal, right? What do you see, I guess, maybe not 5 years or 10 years from now where, you could say, yeah, I want to be in the UFC, you want to be the welterweight champ or middleweight champ. When you look at, I guess, maybe over the next year or two, especially starting with this fight coming up in 2 weeks, how do you see this unfolding for yourself? I mean, do you see yourself like you need to stack together a few wins, grab a CFFC belt, and then make your way up to, the UFC or wherever the next step is? What do you see unfolding for yourself as you keep going through your MMA career? Which, by the way, as we mentioned before, you only turned pro 2 years ago.
Yeah. No, definitely. Like I said, it took. I kind of went a different route than I've wanted to so far here. Like I said, all my fights I've done well. I've done a lot of good things. I've done a lot of goofy things, I guess too. So like you said, just like anything. The hard part, like not to say I think I went pro too early or not. Like I wish. I did wish I developed a little bit more, but I felt ready to go. So I'm like, yeah, no better time than now to ascend it. But I think the mistakes I made in some of my fights are easily fixable. I think the hard part with MMA sometimes is, like I said, there's so many things that can happen. So I definitely learned a lot. My second fight, the Alonzo Turner fight, was one where it's like I kind of faced some adversity and overcame it, and then I just put myself in a bad position, kind of thing. So you learn from those experiences. Obviously, you don't want to learn in the fight and not get your hand raised. But I think I took those bumps that I had to take to get to a new place where I'm at now in a good state of mind, and I think this is a big moment here to kind of turn everything in the right direction. Like you said, I think the goal here is to run off probably two more this year. Again, it's hard to sometimes get another fight, but the goal is obviously do my job here, probably one more before the end of the 2025 here, and then just go into 2020. That's weird saying 2026, but going into 2026 strong. And like it's crazy because if you stay ready, it's more about who's active and who's doing the right stuff at the right moment.
Right.
You run off a few wins, there's no reason why hey, somebody dropped off in Contender Series or somebody dropped off and and like Eric's case, he had a fight out of nowhere. Like the guy said that was a crazy situation still. The guy he fought was like literally like, hey, I fought Tuesday, I'm gonna fight again Saturday. That was wild.
Yeah.
But anyway, stuff like that happens, and it's like just being around the right people, putting together some wins, and being ready to go at all times is super important. And that's why, like you mentioned, like even if you're not in camp, you got to be ready because like you don't know who's gonna call you, what promotion needs you. Like you said, you get a CFFC belt. That's always a goal of mine. To get that belt. I didn't get the leisure of winning an amateur one, which I would have liked one just for fun. Not that it matters at the amateur level, but it's still cool to win a belt. But yeah, definitely you get that. You put yourself in position, no matter what, to have a next guy in line kind of situation. As we've seen, we got Luke coming up too as well. Another guy we trained with, Fernandez. So he's going to be on Contenders as well. So you see those CFFC belts, they mean a lot. You get that belt, you put yourself in position to make that next step. I think we just had we had a couple CFFC vets, on Contenders in the past week, as well as on this card. So it's like, this is the spot. That's the promotion to be in. This is the one to be in if you want to do it.
Yeah, for sure. August 30th at the Hard Rock, CFFC 145. You're taking on Jacob Guerrero at 170 at welterweight. And again, August 30th, right in your hometown backyard for the most part. So I'm sure there'll be a gigantic Jersey contingent out there for you. And of course, a couple other Jersey guys in the car. I know before the show we were talking about, Richie Lewis, former Rutgers wrestler, of course, age level world champ. He's going to bring another large Jersey contingent to the arena too. So I'm sure it'll be quite rowdy inside the Hard Rock.
Plenty of Italians in the crowd. You know that. Yeah.
Before I let you go, speaking of Italians in your area, do we have an Eagles prediction for the 2025 season?
Go Birds. Predictions, they better bring it. That's what I know. I know the people I know is there's a lot of hype, a lot of excitement. I really genuinely think, they're still piecing together some couple things. I'm really excited. Obviously we come out with Dallas strong in the banner game, so that's gonna be exciting. Following my fight that Thursday after. I hope goal is start strong and don't look back. Like I said, last year they had a couple hiccups, early on, like the Buccaneers game, and I think they really put it together. But I think now, hopefully they eased out those kinks, and now it's such a tight knit group. I don't see a reason why we can't repeat. I really think like this would be a team to do it. It's kind of ours to lose right now, but we got to keep that underdog mentality because that's just how they roll. But I'm really excited about my boys here. I hope I feel like we're putting some pieces together with the Phils. They're so due. So all Philly sports around, but definitely go Birds. And the Phillies with Duran now at closing, that's fun. We added another wrinkle, so that's something we've been needing for a while. So if they can keep that going with Schwarber's performances so far, I think the Phillies got a good shot too. I'd like to see the one that the winter sports got to pick it up a little. I think.
Yeah,
I think the Flyers. We got my buddy. We got Andre Petrowski who trains with us, and Johnny Garbarino. We're helping them with some fighting stuff. I don't know if you saw that. They were training them, like kind of like prepping them, the new guys that really don't fight a lot.
That's right.
I did fight stuff. Yep. So like they were getting them involved. So hey, bring back a little bit of that Broad Street Bullies mentality. I'll be cool to see the Flyers, kind of step back in the spotlight a little bit too. Again, Philly's been a great time to be a sports fan right now, and even in in the soccer realm, we've been doing well. So, you
Yeah.
know, we got a couple sports I got to pick it up a little, but yeah, we're having fun here.
Yeah, Sixers and Flyers got to pick it up. I'm with you on the Eagles. Go Birds, obviously, and of course the Phillies' second best record in the National League right now. And who knows, maybe make another run here in 2025. All right, CJ. Before I let you go, I appreciate your time. Anything else you want to plug? Social media, websites, anything else that you want to plug up ahead of your fight in 2 weeks?
Yeah, I'm just excited to let it fly. If you want to follow me on social media, it's CJ_LaFragola. We got some fight shirts that are coming out. I think they're pretty sick with some Spartan's always my vibe. Even though I ended up, I was a Holy Spirit and St. Joe guy. I always got that Spartan mentality. It's been ingrained in me since Coach Joe Ailes, our lifting coach. He put that in me from day one at Holy Spirit, and I still carry that with me. So I definitely ride with the Spartan mindset. I'm just ready to rock, and just it's gonna be excited to get back in there at home. AC's always been the pinnacle of combat sports in my mind because of like AC states going there and everything. So it's always a goal to fight and compete in AC, and it's still a goal today, which is it's an awesome thing to say. I got to be grateful for that.
Yeah, once again, CFFC 145 in Atlantic City at the Hard Rock on August 30th. CJ LaFragola versus Jacob Guerrero at welterweight 170, one of the early fights in the card. Be sure to check that out and don't miss that. CJ, appreciate your time, my man. Looking forward to watching you fight in 2 weeks, and we'll definitely catch up soon.
Sounds good, brother. Appreciate it.